Good Erev Shabbos, in conjunction with the Rebbe's vision and clairvoyance and prophecy. And we saw this over and over again to thousands of people, each person having their own experience. And many of the greatest Jews in Israel came to the Rebbe to receive his blessing, and that blessing was fulfilled. And even today at the Ohel, at the gravesite of the Rebbe, my son-in-law, Rabbi Yitzchak Weber, brought 3 terminally ill patients, one after the other, to the Rebbe's gravesite, and all 3 of them not only turned around, but were diagnosed as being in successful remission from all of their conditions. And we know that thousands of people, even to this day, go through the Rebbe's gravesite and receive blessings for children, for health, for parnasa. Of course, sometimes things don't work out. People will remain as they were. But the divine intervention is visible on each one who is helped. Rabbi Moshe Wolfson is a spiritual guide of thousands today. He has taught tens of thousands of students at Torah V'das and Yeshiva Torah V'das. Came to the Rebbe with a heart condition, telling the Rebbe they needed a bracha because he was going to have a heart operation. And the Rebbe responded that he, meaning Rabbi Wolfson, who gladdens the hearts of so many Jews, does not need a heart operation. He came before the operation. They found his conditions had completely improved and he didn't need an operation. And to this day, his students go visiting the Rebbe's gravesite almost on a monthly basis. The Rebbe in 1973 began visiting the gravesite of his father-in-law very earnestly, several times a week sometimes, which is not his custom. He would go twice a month, sometimes a little bit more before a holiday, but never several times a week, almost every day. The Rebbe began asking us to do things so that from the mouths of babes and sucklings, you've established strength to confound and destroy the enemy and the avenger. And in this theme, and with this as the background, asked us to extend the school year, that we should offer Torah classes to those who had summer vacation, offer them classes and learning for nothing. And I volunteered for that and taught children for several weeks during the summer month of 1973. And then the Rebbe addressed those who had summer camps, that they should extend the camp for an extra week if there was a period of time when the camp ended and the regular classes began, that they should reduce the break so that children would continue to learn. And this was all because of from the mouths of babes and sucklings, you've established strength to destroy the enemy and the avenger. And again, when school year began, he exhorted us to go to the Hebrew schools, to all schools, to give children money for tzedakah. Should give each one two coins, one, and they should be said that this is coming from the Rebbe, and that they should give one to tzedakah and one for themselves, keep one for themselves, and they should say Shema Yisrael and be taught the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, that everything is by divine providence, and we have the opportunity to do good wherever we may go. And personally, I went around several Hebrew schools to give this message. And this was repeated in hundreds and thousands of places throughout the country and the world. And finally, the Rebbe gave out a letter on the 6th day of Tishrei, his mother's yahrzeit, about the upcoming Yom Kippur, and that through the mouths of babes and sucklings, God has given strength to negate the avenger. It appears that this is coming before Yom Kippur. The Rebbe was hinting that on Yom Kippur there would be a war. And sure enough, war broke out And the Egyptians had penetrated the Bar-Lev line, and the Syrians had also penetrated the defenses of Israel in the north. And the seriousness was not known to the general world, but it was extremely serious because there was no barrier preventing the Egyptians from coming on the border, the southern and western border of Israel, and no barrier preventing the Syrians from coming down the eastern and northern borders of Israel. And it looked bleak, but somehow or other, the Egyptians stopped by miracle because there was nothing stopping them. And eventually the Jewish side, the Israelis, regrouped, and General Ariel Sharon penetrated the lines and got on the other side of Suez and essentially cut off the main army of the Egyptians, surrounded them, and they would have been totally destroyed had it not been for the intervention of Henry Kissinger, who was afraid that the Egyptians would be too embarrassed to engage in meaningful negotiations afterwards. But the truth is that this was a total and dominant victory by a nation that was in danger of being destroyed just a week earlier, week and a half earlier. And by the time the hostilities ended, they had completely destroyed the enemy that was going against it, actually would have completely decimated the Egyptian military machine, the Third Army. And the Syrians were completely destroyed in the north, and Israel could have traveled directly into Cairo and into Damascus, except for the intervention of the American Secretary of State and the weakness, actually, of the resolve of the Israeli government. But the miracle was open. First of all, that the Rebbe identified when the war was to begin, and the whole concern beginning Passover time, Pesach time, that we should increase Torah study with children all throughout the summer and even during the days leading up to Yom Kippur. All of these efforts, the Rebbe said, would bring about, to nullify the desires and the activities of the enemy of the venture, which is actually what happened. Who foresaw this? Not the Satmar, not Rav Shach, not the Stapler, only the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And only he, fighting with the forces of enemies of the Jewish people, through his prayers and through the activities of his shluchim, was able to spiritually help to negate these designs of the enemy and the avenger. And again, this comes from the fact that the Rebbe, his Torah was Lishma on a higher level than his contemporaries. No one in this generation was even remotely like him.